it is my pleasure to ask Kathleen and Pat Frayer to approach the stage.
I think it's kind of like old times for Pat and I, and it's really nice to see him again. I do see him on occasion. He hangs around town. But the first time we met was in 1979, and at that time, it's kind of interesting, when I started at Big Brothers Big Sisters, I was the first paid person too. They had Vista volunteers prior to that. And we had 14 matches. But when Pat started, just a couple years later, we were up to 29. And we served 7 Prescott schools, and we had about 20 kids on the waiting list. And I was the entire, like Nick, I was the entire professional staff. So I raised money, and I interviewed bigs, and I interviewed littles. And I remember, honestly, still remember to this day, interviewing Pat and his older brother, Larry. And I think when I heard our police chief say that hope is so important, I think at that moment I really realized how important it was. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But a lot of things have stayed the same, and a lot of things have changed. So I'm going to ask Pat to stand up. One of the things that's changed is Pat wasn't this tall when he was today, in 2015, we served over 700 children. We were in 65 schools, and we had well over 100 children waiting in a budget, as Nick has already told you, over $1 million. And so things have changed greatly. On the other hand, I think a lot of things have stayed pretty much the same. Yeah, and one of the things that I always like to talk about that stayed the same is I've stayed involved as a volunteer Big Sister. This is my 7th little. Her name is Stephanie, if I live through this one. As you can see, she's only 12 years old, so you can imagine the work I have ahead of me. The second picture is one of our first littles, our family match, and that's Chris Wilson with his 2 daughters. Chris is a wonderful father, and they live in Korea with his wife, and come to visit still to this day. And what a wonderful young man he has been, and what a great story. One of the things I also like to tell people is some things haven't changed. Our mission is still to make sure that we reach out to every child who needs our help. And unfortunately, I can tell you that the stories have gotten worse. There are more children living without any parent. A third of the kids in our program have been touched by incarceration, either a parent, one of their parents, or a brother or sister. Poor people are a lot poorer. It's a lot tougher these days than it used to be. So those are kind of some of the things that have drastically changed. And what I'd like to do now is really try to turn to Pat and really let you know how Big Brothers Big Sisters really works. I think that you often see the pictures of the kids, you see the kids in the program that are our littles, but you often don't get to hear what happens later. So I want to start by kind of remembering my interview with Pat and his big brother, and I can tell you he was a sad little boy.
That I don't remember, but I'm sure I was. Yeah, I was the youngest of 8 children, and we didn't have it very easy growing up. Excuse me, oh great, plaid pants.
There he is.
It was the late 70s. My parents had just divorced, and things were tight for my mom. As a result of the divorce, she lost a lot of friends. There was a stigma with divorce in the 70s, and they had to split up for the safety of our kids. My dad suffered from mental illness, so she struggled, making ends meet, and it was a very painful time for all my brothers and sisters. I had 3 older brothers at home, but I really didn't have any solid male influence on a daily basis or weekly basis, or even a monthly basis in my life. So shortly after that, I think I was on the waiting list for about a year. That's when you're 9 or 10 years old. It seems like forever. And I didn't fully understand what Big Brothers Big Sisters was at the time. All I knew was my mom was making me do it. So, I mean, my brother is just a couple of years older than I am. So
I kind of wanted to know how things went with you and Pat. I mean, you and Clay.
So yeah, it was a couple of years of family counseling and stuff like that. Like I said, our mom signed us up for the program. And after that year, I was matched with Clay Reinhardt, who's the gentleman you see in the picture there. Great man. And I didn't know anything about him, so obviously we matched up statistically, and with our likes and dislikes, it's kind of what you did at the time and what all the caseworkers do, I would assume. But as time passed, it didn't take long for us to match up as friends and have a real bond between each other. And I think I got what you got. I was the youngest of 8, so I didn't have to share with anybody.
I thought, one of the things I thought was really important when we talked to Pat before was that fact that when you're the last kid in a family of 8, your father is no longer involved, and your mom's trying to make everything happen. You can imagine how little time there is for you. The other thing I wanted to do was kind of ask you, what people often wonder what bigs do together with their littles.
For me, my memories are the simple things. Nothing grand, no trips or cruises or anything like that. It was the day-to-day stuff. Come hang out with me and my buddies while we play volleyball in City League, or have a weekend pickup basketball game downtown. I was 11, 12 years old, being able to play with guys in their late 20s, early 30s. I thought it was pretty cool. So, and then Clay would also support me in coming to my baseball games and being there. So, that was a very important part for me to be able to have him there and to show off a little bit.
You can tell by the picture that Pat really liked baseball.
I was a Pirates fan back in the day. That's before we got WGN and Prescott, and then I became a Cubs fan. But yeah, he just let me hang out with him and his friends and included me as part of his day-to-day life. A few years into our match, he met a woman and was engaged. And I was concerned that I'd fall by the wayside, and that was furthest from the truth. I just became another part of their family as they grew together and had their own kids, and just had another outlet and another family to lean on.
Kind of, how long did your match last?
We were together, I'd say 6 years, and he moved away to attend medical school in Missouri, excuse me. So there's my last year or two of high school, he was out of town, but as fate would have it, I went to school in Western Illinois University, and my first weekend there, I was 18 years old, and all by myself. I didn't know anybody on the campus, and it was just like a 3 or 4 hour drive for Clay. So he took the time and came over and spent the weekend with me, helped me adjust to my new environment. Made a big deal made a big deal for me out of it. And then a couple of years later, same thing on a parents' weekend. The first few years of college, everybody had their families there, and we kept in contact, and I mentioned that to him, and he made a point of attending. So it was things like that that get me choked up.
So I think, kind of looking back, now that you're 50.
Not yet. Approaching.
It kind of feels that probably Clay was always there for you at those critical points.
Oh, absolutely was, and he was, he didn't try to be my dad. He didn't try to discipline me when I screw up and disobey my mom or give in to peer pressure and get in trouble. He was just there to support me and let me know that I wasn't alone. And that's the biggest thing that a kid can ask for, especially in your teenage years. hard enough time just getting through daily life.
I'm going to make one little quote here from Pat, and that is, "I'll be forever grateful for him and people just like you," meaning all of you here, who make it possible for kids like me to have a big brother.